And the first thing I want to do is introduce the other members of the first hall. My name is Ann Rarick, and I'm co-chair of the Personnel Study Task Force. And I wanted to introduce you to the other members. Paul McCone, where's Ruth? And Ruth and I shared the responsibilities, which was really great. Because we both have different skill sets, and it was really neat to see the balance between us two. Some of the people that are here are the personnel task, the personnel board are here, representatives. And I do want to take a shout out to all the people that helps us this up for us. This is quite a labor of love. Thank you. And I was going to introduce Terry Ackerman, who has been on the select board, who is liaison from the select board to the Personnel Study Task Force.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Whoops.
You're okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. It took a great turnout. And as you know, this personnel study task force has been very hard work and really doing yeoman's work on this difficult project. Most of what we're going to do today is get more input. That's the most important part. They have a draft report, as you can see. Before it goes to the select board, they want to get your thoughts, employees, the public, and then present to the select board. So I'm not sure if Carrie Fleur is here. Oh, she's just coming in now. I'm told she wants to say a couple words, and then we'll get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see so many people were able to make it out today. I hope I'm not going to repeat so into. I don't want to repeat anything that anybody said, but we're incredibly appreciative of all of the work that the Personnel Study Task Force has done. I think it's been a year or so in a lot of meetings, and I know they've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people and put quite a bit of time and effort into this process, and it's great to see so many here today to hear on their report findings. We hope that we get some good feedback from you to be incorporated into the report. So that's it. Thank you.
So I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading your report. You all got a copy of it as a handout. But I do want to tell you that I'm just going to highlight the findings, and then you can read the recommendations. We do 3 by 5. Those are comments, and we'll bring 3 by 5 card for you, or you can just raise your hand. And we were able to make the recommendations that we made. So quickly, let me tell you that we started off by being asked to look just at the bylaws and the policies. And from that, a lot of things emerged. And some of our findings, as you will see, are numbered on that handout, 1 through 8. And are in the works right now, as a matter of fact. But one of the biggest ones that we noticed was the total lack of communication between all the interested parties that would be partners. And also the lack of consistent adherence to some of the bylaws as they were written back in 1951. Which, when we think about that, is a whole century ago. And the fact that decisions were not being sought, input was not being sought for decisions and a major impact on lots of people. And that it's confusing between policy and bylaw. One of the learnings I've had is that bylaws need town meeting approval. Policies can be made separately and without approval. And the reason we're here today is our concern about transparency. So with that, there is much more detail on the web. You can see the whole report with all the appendices that we use to refer to these issues. And we'll be making final recommendations to the select board on October 3rd. We're going to be meeting a week from today at 4 o'clock to do our final run through of those recommendations. And that is why between today and Monday at noon, if anybody has any more input they would like to make, that is the time to do it. And there are many ways you could do that. Some of them are listed on the handout. And if worse comes to worse, go to the website. So what we want to do now is open the floor to all of you for your comments, questions, and how can we be built for satisfactory partnership. Questions? Comments?
I have a comment. It's not the couple bit, and I wasn't planning on, however. I do that at every meeting we have, so I'll say one. A couple of weeks ago, I was watching a documentary on Netflix, and it was about the Boeing Corporation. And the Boeing Corporation, as we all know, makes airplanes. And the documentary spoke about, for years, the great company that it is, that the employees were involved in many aspects of the corporation. They interviewed one employee, past employee, that worked during the heyday of the Boeing Corporation. And said, I thought this was kind of dumb at the time. Said, all of a sudden we all got shirts. So we always had shirts that said Boeing on them, from assembly workers to the up at the top echelon. All of a sudden they printed the word team on the shirts. And he said, I thought it was kind of maybe a little tacky. So as time went on, he said it really was everybody a team. And we went out into the community. People were like, "Oh, you work at Boeing? That is." I understand that's a wonderful place to work. And he said it was. If one employee, one person in the safety aspect of building these airplanes said, "I see a problem here," they raised their hand and stopped. Somebody came in from upper management and said, "What's the problem?" And this person, he said, that it went along very, very well. And they made great airplanes. It didn't crash. Then McDonnell Douglas bought or merged with Boeing. And there was a change in management, there was a change in culture, there was a change in the whole work environment. I don't think it's unlike what we're all seeing now, and I'm not pointing fingers to anybody here in Concord, but what I'm saying is that we're in the middle of some wholesale changes in the workplace. And all of a sudden, Boeing didn't build great aircrafts. All of a sudden, they were crashing. That was the 737 MAX. They're reevaluating it now and saying, okay, we made a mistake here. It was all driven towards stock price. It wasn't involving the employees. And I think we can take a lesson from it. And I was watching this documentary, and in some aspects, I think it's happening in government work, where we need to reevaluate how we do things, how the employees factor into decision-making, and become a team. As not suggesting we all go out and get the shorts to a team, but I'm suggesting that concept of team and transparency, as Ann had said, is very important. And hopefully our report raises some issues. Some people will disagree with some aspects of our report, it's honest. And we could be wrong in a couple of places, but being a town employee in Concord for 30 years, I see the changes. I went home after 12 years, retiring, came back to be part of this committee, and I've seen some changes. I think we need some more. And it's going to take everybody to do it. And that's why I'm really happy that everybody that came today showed up. You know, if you just have a thought, any aspect of something, when everybody's, you stand up and your boss could be here. You get it. So if you have any feedback after we speak today and after you read the report or within the next, I think up until the 27th,
Noon on Monday.
noon on Monday, shoot us an email. That's our private emails. It
Put
is,
them on the back. They're
yes,
on the handout.
it's on your handout. Send us a note. Doesn't have to be signed. We don't care. We want to make things better. That's why we volunteered to do this. Put in hundreds and hundreds of hours doing this. That's my comment. So, anybody ask questions?
Yes. Yeah, because they're gonna be.
Sorry, I was hoping it was right then. Not. So I downloaded the draft, and first of all, I want to say thank you. 177 pages.
The person sitting next to you helped with that.
And asking questions, citizens, but also someone who worked in town. I looked through the personnel, and I know for like improvements. What is there a focus also in diversity, equity, and inclusion, both in terms of recruitment and also if there's a staff member or employee who's experienced discrimination and racism, is there a vehicle in this?
So the question is, I'm gonna repeat the question because it doesn't sound like everybody could hear it. Has anybody experienced some kind of diversity, equity, inclusion issues? Is that what you're asking? Or is it more, are we including that as part of the consideration?
Employees. And have those will that be made public to town, and just in terms of recruitment, is there a policy going forward?
Well,
What is the first part?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yes, yeah, it does, and it's kind of a little bit outside the scope of what we're chartered with, but, and there is a new DEI commission that the select board has put in place, that that would be a very good place to have this conversation, among others. And it is something that we will definitely put as, I mean, one of the things we did include an invitation to them today. So, yeah, but that's volunteer organization. But you're asking, are you asking from the HR? Are you asking from the staff level or volunteer level?
It's a volunteer and.
Yeah, both. Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. Great, thank you. Any others? Yes,
So first of all, thank you all.
can you stand up because I'm having.
I want to thank you because I know how much work went into this. For this, a lot of trust between utilities, I think, personnel, board, and resources. And after reading what you folks went through and the redactions that were made, is even less. So is there anything that's going to be in place that any of your recommendations are actually going to be done other than the review of the organization?
Your question was specifically how do we know things are gonna be acted on that are recommended? I think that's gonna be up to the select board to prioritize. I don't know whether you want to say anything about it, but it's going to be a set of recommendations that goes to the select board. And whether they choose to have them as the top priority or I think that's gonna be something that will have to be determined in the scope of everything else that they have to do. And I think that the fact that the personnel board is sitting here listening is also another aspect of it. Yes,
So I will follow up on just that topic. Seems with the survey that it's heavily redacted. Collectively, we try to get conversion that is unredacted.
If you don't mind. Thanks, I appreciate it.
yeah, that's gonna.
With the survey, we got a version that was heavily redacted. We collectively try to get that version that was unredacted, and it was just a constant fight of getting the information that we provided. And I think talking about transparency stopped immediately. Real problems that were put in there from real people that have real concerns and possibly solutions, and it was just shut down. So I don't know if this is, anything's gonna come from this. Are we gonna be able to get an unredacted version? Or is this gonna be, we'll give you what we wanna give you, what we think we should give you?
This is a personal answer to your question. I too am perplexed. I was made aware that the town of Carlisle did a similar survey in out to all of their citizens. It was part of their town governance outreach. And it was the same format. It was for citizens and employees. And there were a lot of, it's online. It's on the Carlisle town website. And when they got all the answers, they put it on the website. And they're not all pretty. They're just, there are some agreements with some people and with some names of the town. Names were put in, it was just put out there. So I too, I stand still perplexed at it. As to, we didn't do it. The town has the reasons for doing it, and you can ask the powers that be why they did it. I think it's important that you two side by side communities did effectively the same thing. One community printed it, and one community spent, I suspect, a lot of money having a lawyer for that. And I don't know why. So I'm going to leave that one for anybody that wants to ask it, but I too am perplexed.
Other comments? Yeah.
Hi, many of you know me, I'm Mark Howell, I'm a former employee and a current town resident. And I'm really pleased to see that this task force has been able to bring this work this far. I had the pleasure of working with many of you for a number of years, and one of the reasons that this task force exists and this work is going on is because what you guys do is so important to the town. And you need to know it from the townspeople. And my hope is that this is a first step towards establishing a governance process which is designed to make sure that employees are recognized as key stakeholders in the sustainable, productive community that we live in here. We have been on a downward slope for a number of years around the way that, frankly, Concord as a community, and I'm speaking to the community here, has been sort of outsourcing the work of taking care of ourselves to you all. Not going to ask for a show of hands, but just think about how many of you are compensated in a way that you can live here, the way some of these employees, Anita and Paul, and a few others of us who were fortunate enough to actually be able to both live and work in this community. As a community, we can do better. The next step for this report is that the select board and the personnel board need to look very carefully at what policies, what goals are actually being pursued such that we make this an attractive community to work in, that we begin to stop the revolving door that makes it so hard to keep departments staffed and forces all of you to work extra time and on extra tasks because that third or fourth seat in your respective organization is never filled by anybody who's there for very long. Such that we have told ourselves a fiction for a number of years that this is a highly desirable, extra competitive community from an attraction workforce. I can tell you from my experience working here, trying to staff a department, that is not the case. It was difficult to staff, and people came here and worked as hard as they possibly could, as hard as you do. And yet it was difficult to make that, to close that equation for time. And so I'm really calling on you guys to just understand that as citizens, we care and make sure that the communication is open to the citizenry to what your experience actually is. I'm calling on the senior management team to recognize the realities that I was just speaking about and do some things to adjust both the competitive position of the community when it comes to recruiting, as well as the conditions that cause employees to consider staying or moving on to someplace else. The personnel board have an important role in governance, and that role has been poorly defined. And it's been undermined over the years to the point where you've heard it a dozen times, if you've heard it once, that the personnel board is a rubber stamp. Why is it a rubber stamp? It's not supposed to be that, and we need to envision a better way to do that. And so the next step in this process is to take this information that we've seen and understand how to use that to create some realistic goals. Things can't change overnight, but some realistic goals around employees' relations with the community and with their employers. The senior management team, the town manager, with all due respect, they are employees as well. And their job is to make this a good place for you guys to get your jobs done. And so that's how I feel about it. That's one of the reasons why I was adamant when I saw the personnel bylaw essentially being proposed to be tossed aside 3 years ago in town meeting, that that was not a good way to go, and that instead, well, we need to seek them out of this process, improved personnel bylaw and an improved charge that gives the personnel board real responsibilities for monitoring and overseeing how are we doing. The central question in my mind at least is the town of Concord really a good place to be working? Are we really treating those employees that come to work here with all due respect? And that becomes a sustainable position to be in. That's how I feel about it. Thank you guys so much for the work you did. And please do send in the comments. Let people know how you feel and trust that the community is listening for what you have to say. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Ed Perry, a citizen. I saw citizens were invited as well as employees. So I'm a citizen, 362 Bedford Street. I'm here to thank the select board of 3 years ago from preventing the disastrous exploration of the issues that are contained in the report from going in front of town meeting. That was not the place where the issues should have been heard, and it wasn't because of the select board setting up this task force. So I thank the select board for doing it. We've had a 2.5-year process where we now have a report that spells out issues that all of you are familiar with, and I hope all of you will comment on and support solutions for. We now have a town manager who is listening. She's listening right over here. I think she will respond favorably to the task force reports. We were about to lose our personnel board. We have a personnel board here who's listening. They have actually changed their attitude in the last year because of the task force, from my observation. That's enough about procedure. Mr. Howell wanted you to hear from a citizen. I'm here to thank you for all you do for the community. I'm actually a native. I grew up here. I've been stopped by the police department. I've been aided by the fire department. I have seen all of the public works people. I've worked with the people on the townhouse. You are all to be thanked for all you do every day for the citizens of Concord. And I hope that we can turn around the unfortunate turnover that we've experienced for the last 4 or 5 years. It'll be up to the town manager, up to the select board, and up to the personnel board to do that. I do think it's a challenge, but all of you, I hope, will contribute, and you have been contributing for so many years. Thank you very much.
Any comments? So did you hand up? Nope.
For our Zoom audience, if you do want to speak, you can just unmute your mic. Mr. Erich, I'm not seeing any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, there is one.
Okay. Jillian?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I came late to the meeting, and I was hoping to find out if there were going to be any. I know the report is a draft, but are there going to be any footnotes added that refer to documents that were discussed in the report but not actually identified?
Well, the report in the whole draft with all the appendices are on the website. Is that what you're
Yes.
asking?
No, I saw references to references to documents like it would say within the report, it would say supporting documents were provided, but it doesn't actually say anything about what those documents were. So they would say that, we discovered a particular issue, like, for example, the way that the task force had participated in the past, and this person brought forward supporting documents, but there's no actual reference to what those supporting documents were. And there was a lot of stuff in the report that was like that, where it was anecdotal. And so I wanted to make sure that kind of raise the bar a little bit in the ways to be completely transparent, like people have said they have wanted. And you can't just refer to supporting documents, but not actually explain what they are. And if it was included in the appendices, there's no reference within the report of where you would find those supporting documents, that kind of thing.
Most latest report that was put up this week, after each of those comments has parentheses around where that document is.
Okay, so there were specific parts that I read the latest report, and there are specific parts where that is not the case. So who would I contact to make those specific references to?
To us.
The task force itself. Yes, okay.
And send it, has our email addresses on it. And
Okay.
it all has old Gmail for the PSDF survey. It can go either place and it will come into our labs.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, how many people are on Zoom?
How many people are on Zoom? I think there's about 20.
25.
25.
I'm sorry, there's 34 or 33.
34. Yes, Bill. Bill Merchant, who's the head of the personnel board.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Marachek. I'm the current chair of the personnel board. Have been, I guess, the chair for a couple of years. On the personnel board for 3 years. First of all, I want to certainly thank everyone who is here, who works for the city. And thank you on behalf of myself and the personnel board for everything that you're doing. I'm here to be able to firsthand be able to either talk or listen, as I have been. And I'm obviously moved by the fact that there are so many here. There's some really good points that have already been raised, and I'm sure there could even be some more as we go down this path. I was going to talk specifically about a few areas in the report that I don't really find acceptable, but I don't think you need to listen to me. I'm going to, however, focus on two items, and I hope the study task force will think about either looking at the language or looking at adding or subtracting. And one has to do, the first one I want to talk about is high turnover. Turnover is I'm sorry? High turnover. That's mentioned throughout the document, but there's never sort of a definition. What is high turnover? Certainly I know, because I worked as the head of this company's HR function for 35 years. I know what turnover is, at least from my own perspective. I know the issues that it causes, not only to the people who are working extra in order to get the job done, but I think it's important that that we should think about what is high turnover. Now, in the report, you're going to see a report that was prepared by the town, and turnover is somewhere between 8 and 10% over the last, let's say, 5 years. It might be. There at one point in time, the personnel task force had data that said there was a 50% turnover. Well, numbers tend to influence people's attitudes. 50% turnover. But I would imagine there's some people in this room that think the town has a 50% turnover. That's not the case. I'm also going to leave for the task force. I'm a numbers kind of person. I like to deal with quantitative numbers. And so I have a copy of a recent Bureau of Labor Statistics report published by the US government in one of its frequent distributions that has separation data, which includes data from multiple industries, but it includes data from town governments. And that report actually will show that, you know, we're not doing bad. That doesn't mean the turnover isn't unacceptable, but from a Bureau of Labor Statistics standpoint, you're going to find that the average turnover is double what it is here in Concord. Doesn't make it good, doesn't make it right, and we certainly, the town management, select board, the personnel board needs to do whatever it can in order to minimize turnover. The turnover is a tricky thing. Why do people leave? Some people leave because of compensation. Absolutely no doubt about it. Some people leave because of benefits. Some people leave because, you know, there's no career growth. There's no career growth. The town has a limited number of openings and they don't have a slot that is projected. And the person says, you know, I think I'm going to continue my career. And in order to do that, to get a higher position in a different, may require you to go to a different location. So we're talking about career growth. But there are probably 3 or 4 others that I don't want to belabor it. The other thing I want to talk about a little bit about is the compensation. And I would encourage the task force to make certain there's adequate information there, adequate data that reflects the fact that the town is currently has a compensation study underway. Now, maybe everybody in the garage here knows that, but there may be some who don't. So the town has invested in an external third party to do a compensation study, including benefits, that reflects comparable cities in this area. And so that's underway, but it'll take a few months, obviously. So the issues having to do with compensation, because there was a high number of people who said, you know, they're not compensated enough. I think one time in my career, I was there as well. But what the town has to balance, and this is the select board, and I think the town management, you've got different constituencies. You've got workers, you've got citizens, managers, supervisors, directors, personnel board people, select board people, and you have to be able to balance all of the interests of these parties. And I think that's a pretty tough. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is transparency as it relates to the employee survey. Transparency as it relates to the employee survey that I believe the task force should consider adding an explanation. You were told that this was going to be a confidential survey. You were told it was going to be a confidential survey. Lo and behold, for whatever reason, a non-redacted copy of the results were sent to some citizens in town. They weren't sent to me. They weren't sent to you. Non-redacted. Now, I think that's a breach of faith. I think that deserves some kind of an explanation as to why that happened. And I know for a fact that in a personnel board meeting, I asked a certain person whether or not they had received, citizen had received, and the answer was yes. So what reason would there be for some people, some citizens, to have all of the information. But for everybody else, no. Now, lo and behold, you go through, you can take a look at the minutes, you can take a look at personal task force minutes, and you will see eventually what happened was that, okay, we're going to remove the names. Now, these are names of people whose reputations are at stake. People who were managers, people who were directors. I've never seen the non-redacted version. So I don't know what is there, but I'm putting together all of the information I'm getting from minutes of various meetings. But if you're a person who has been, and I'm going to use the word defamed because in fact, that's what's happening here. You are being called out for doing something improper, and you have no voice in being able to respond. I don't think that's an appropriate way to run an organization, to run a business. So they remove the names. Well, then lo and behold, he goes to the staff, and they're being asked to publish this. Publish it with no names, but titles. And the staff says, no, I think this isn't right. It isn't right to publish something like this. And they said, we should have it reviewed by council. And they did. And you can see in the minutes that the council said, if you go ahead and release this as it is, you are going to be potentially liable for defamation in a lawsuit. Now, why did we ever get there in the first place? And the reason we got there in the first place is because the confidentiality wasn't on. Was not on. And I find that absolutely unacceptable. So I've said my piece about the transparency issue. I encourage the task force to include something in the final report that reflects what I just said. There may be people who are due an apology. There may be people who actually have an explanation as to, well, I'm a citizen and I should get that information because I'm a citizen. Well, I find that all very perplexing. So I thank you for listening. I thank the task force for all of the work. There's a tremendous amount of work that has been done. It is going to be difficult, but a challenge for the select board and the personnel board to be able to decide what are the priorities. I mean, there is so much that needs to be done, which in some ways is an indictment on the part of what's happening in the town and what is happening in the past. But I'm here to meet the challenge. I'm here to work along with other members of the personnel board, as well as the select board, the management and employees, because I call upon some of you, I'm sure more than I should, but I thank you. I thank you for everything that you do.
Thanks, Bill. I'll make a couple of quick responses. With respect to the first issue of turnover, that was something that I was handling personally. The reason we got to the point we were at was our minutes reflecting. There's virtually nothing in this report that the backup documentation doesn't exist. With respect to turnover, the first thing we did was ask the Human Resources Department for statistics on turnover, because we had been hearing from employees. The town manager asked in the email for employees to reach out to us if they felt that they wanted to. We couldn't get getting the statistics from HR was untenable. Wasn't going to happen. I did the best I could getting it from the retirement. And it ran around, and from my analysis, not a mathematician, an entire club, the senior citizen, he was losing it. The best I could do was we were around 50% over 5 years. It says that specifically over a period of time. It never no one ever indicated that it was 50% on any given year. That would be ridiculous. It depends how you look at the years. If you look at them over 5 years or you look at them over 7 years, you are seeing an incline of the number of people leaving over the last few years. The data supports it. Was Ackerman, rightfully so, asked the question? She said, "This doesn't. Can you tell us how you got to?" And she was absolutely right. She had better luck getting it from HR than we did. She got an answer like that. And what that shows is, depending on the year, it tracked from about 44%. If you took what number of years you asked about, it tracked from about 44% to 64%. Which is around over 5 years. Which 5 years you look at? What I would suggest, Mr. Marachek, is that's a great job for personnel board now, is to look at that data. And look at it, your numbers guy. Take a look at it. That's a great idea. It's not our job to necessarily look at the turnover at the time. We're standing in a building where several people came to me from. And they asked about, how come we have 3 linemen on here? Well, we don't have a turnover problem, apparently, except it used to be 9. And at one point, we were down to 3. No turnover problem. One of the comments made by a member, somebody I respect a great deal from this organization, said to me, I said to this person, while we were talking at the beginning of this, I asked, why don't you guys just go to union? And he sat back. He thought for a second, and he said, it's not worth it. We know where unions start. They're going to make us start down here. He said, there's a better fix to the problems we haven't seen over here. We're just going to leave. We're just going to go. And they were going out the door. You think I'm kidding? Ask around. So that's where that's coming from. Ask the police department how things are doing with turnover. Why do we have jobs posted on the website that I checked this morning from last year in CPW? Interesting, good thing for the personnel board to look. Would be, what are we doing in recruiting? What are we doing in how we look at the overall structure of benefits? So I suggest to you that you can look at the turnover all day long, it's too high. And I know the numbers support it. So with respect to the survey, I don't understand how you can possibly say defame this and that. People write articles all they want about public employees. Employees have a much lower expectation of privacy than normal citizens. Why do Concord print it? They make my case. It's all I'm saying. They printed it. Nobody got defamed. Nobody got sued. There's nothing going on. It didn't cost Carlisle likely thousands of dollars to redact it. They just printed it. It's a truth. Sometimes a truth hurts. But I think it was a third one. I'm not going to apologize for anything in that. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to come together. We'll be out. But it's a great opportunity for people to come together and look at some of the things, talk to the employees. What a novel idea. It used to go on back in the 90s. But the person who did it. They went out, they fanned out. No, I was there. It's in the town reports. It's in the report. I think there's a lot of work to do. I think a lot of things that we can do to make a change. And I encourage us all to do it. Thank you.
Any follow-up comments? Huh? I'm sorry, go ahead, yes. This way, so people can see it.
Just to respond to the comment about confidentiality on the employee survey. It was our understanding that the employees had confidentiality, what they said. That they could feel confident that your name wasn't going to be attached to this. If someone's name showed up repeatedly and they were adverse comments, people need to know that. So it was confidential, and the entire unredacted survey should have been given to the employees, because this was an employee survey, not a citizen survey.
That was the other point I didn't cover, was nobody on this task force ever said we were not going to. We're gonna publish people's names. Read the emails, documentation says the identities of the people making comments kept part of that.
Yeah.
To mirror what everyone else said, just a thank you to you all. What can we anticipate for a timeline or any type of actionable follow-up to this? What's next?
I think that is something that would have to be, the question was whether, what can you expect in the way of action? And I said, I think it's gonna be up to the deliberations of the select board in terms of, first of all, having a chance to get through all the paperwork, and then maybe possibly having conversations with the personnel board about what some of the priorities are. Do you have anything you would ask? And
That's very well.
okay. So I told them not too far off the mark.
That's very nice.
Anything else? No? Well, please feel free, go ahead.
I need a technique, to say to be Virginia Road and a retiree. Just 3 points. And as a public employee since 1970, not always in Concord, but over several communities, I know firsthand there is a lower expectation for privacy working in the public sector. And that's something that we're being paid by taxpayer funds. And that's something we have a responsibility and an honor to respect. So, I mean, I worked in positions, not always in Concord, but where my name was in the paper every week, and I never met the editor who wrote negative things about me. It just came with the turf. Second, there is a level of accountability that because we're taking public funds, people who are performing public positions need to be accountable for their actions. I think the fact that the survey was redacted was unfortunate. I never saw the unredacted version, but if positions or departments were had some criticism about them, I think that accountability, again, because it's a public sector position, those people should have been held accountable. And the third, this is a comment about Mr. Barakchek's comment. The public records law really has the benefits of state law, really has very specific reasons when something cannot be public. So employees, our addresses aren't public, our marital status is in public. But how much money we make, what our job responsibilities are, what we do in our positions, that is all. And I'll just leave it at that.
So we're rounding out our time here. Anybody else have any other comments? Well, let me just remind you once again, on the handout, we have our email addresses. And if you would like to speak to us or write to us between now and Monday, so that we can deliberate and incorporate whatever thoughts or reflections you have, please let us know and be in touch and know that you have them. And if there's nothing else. Thank you. And a cookie for the road, which says, yes. Thank you for taking this time.